There are several data types that we can use, and I think most of these should be fairly familiar to us in that Boolean is true false, number holds, well, a number, string holds several characters joined together. There's null and undefined, and they're very similar, but not exactly the same thing. Null is like an explicit value. I want to make this null, whereas undefined is, you've declared this variable, but you just haven't given it any value yet, so it's undefined. There are two relatively new primitive data types called big int and symbol. For the most part, most developers don't need to use big int. Big int is when you're working with numbers that are greater than the trillions, there's actually some issues that JavaScript has at its core. And so if you need to work with very large numbers in whatever it is that you're doing, you can't just use a regular number. It won't work right. You have to use a big int because it's designed to work correctly for large numbers. We'll also take a quick look at what a symbol is. A symbol is basically a unique identifier. You can sort of kind of think of it as a primary key. And I'll explain how that could be potentially useful for someone that's trying to write some software that kind of leverages a symbol and that idea of some sort of primary key. So let me go ahead and uncomment this out and this up. Oh, and this is going to throw an error, so I'm going to go ahead and comment that out. So we have there's a constant that we can reference called max safe integer, and max safe integer is a very large number, and I can actually even pull that up here. If I say number dot max safe integer, you can see that right there is our number. I think it says here it's, what is it? 2 to the 53rd minus 1, right? That's as much as it could possibly hold before we start to run into some weirdness. So just to demonstrate that for you, if I save this code and let it run, notice that I have the max safe integer and I log it out and I get, just look at the last 3 digits here, 991. When I add 1 to it, okay, I get 992, okay. And then if I add 1 more to it by doing this plus equals, notice I get 992 again. And actually, at least in Firefox, I'll never get a number greater than that. I can keep adding, and it's kind of like stuck at that size. So does that mean I can't work with a number any bigger than that? Well, no. You can, and you just have to use the new big int. And the way that you know that you're working with the big int type is this little n that is kind of following the number. So notice I'm actually starting my big number after the max safe integer. And I have this little n here. I'll log it. And then notice that I'm saying plus equals 1 n. So it makes sure that it uses the big int logic to deal with that. So let me go ahead. Oops. I go ahead and save that. And now we should see that we get 992n. That means it's a big int. And 993n, right? So it's able to increment and work as we had expected. Cool. So if you need super large numbers, big int is your friend. Okay, this next bit is a little bit of a jump, right? We kind of like, we got a steep curve here in difficulty. So this may be more for some of our advanced users, and that is a symbol. Okay. And the thing that I want to point out about a symbol, and actually I can just copy this code and I'm going to run it here in my console. And what's interesting about this is if I make a symbol with and I give it some key to kind of name it, and I make the exact same symbol with the exact same key to name it, notice that it does not match. They are not the same thing. And that is the core feature of a symbol. Every single symbol that is created is absolutely unique. It will not equal anything else except that symbol. But seems kind of weird. Why in the world would you want to do that? Well, there's a couple reasons why. And the use case that I think is kind of interesting is this idea or this concept of marking an object or adding a piece of information to an object that only you have access to. So check this out. We're going to make a flag, and suffice to say, we'll talk a little bit more about what exactly this construct is, but just suffice to say that I need to have it here. And I'm going to make my little flag. I'm going to make a function, and I'm going to attach it to the window so it can be used by the outside world. And I'm going to mark that flag as true. I then have another process called, has processed, or I could say has been processed. And all I'm doing is I'm just checking that that flag exists. Why is that helpful, or why would I want to do that? Well, what I could do is I could mark an object as having been processed or has undergone some transformation, or I can set some state or something like that. And what I think is really, really, really cool about that is the thing about symbols is they will not show up if we iterate over all of the properties of that person. So check this out. Let me go ahead and delete all of this and shift home. No, oh, no. Control shift home. There we go. Let's comment all of that out. Save. Let this run. Okay, so whoa, there's a lot of information that just got thrown on the screen. Well, let's go through it one at a time. The first log is just, again, to demonstrate that these two symbols do not equal each other. The second log is to show you that we've created a person. The person is Tyson Jouglet, or well, Tyson, and my job is developer. I then went ahead and marked this person as being processed, and I logged that out. And you can see, hey, there's that symbol showing up. So I can see the symbol here in my debug output. That's no problem. And here's where I think it's kind of cool. If I try to iterate over all of the properties of Tyson, name, job, and now later I've added symbol, I can see here that I only get name and job. I don't actually get my symbol. So symbol isn't very disruptive in some of the processing logic that you might want to be, if you have generic processing logic and you want to get access to some extra information or metadata or something about that object, you can totally tack a symbol onto that object and store your metadata. And what's, I guess, most important about that metadata or that extra piece of information that you've kind of attached to the object, only you can access it. Because remember I said no two symbols are the same. So I have this symbol here, symbol processed, and I'm going to try to reference my person by symbol processed. And notice that I get undefined. I am unable to get to that value. And I think that's super cool, but I can still call the has processed method that I created, and that will happily return true that it has been processed. Whoa, that's pretty awesome. So yeah, symbols, they kind of have a very niche use case, but I just really think it's a cool construct.